Welcome to Soltron. This is a video review for the Shinkalion Change the World armor change sets for Hayabusa, Komachi, and we'll start off by looking at the boxes, and you can see like the artwork is really beautiful. Like they look very impressive in the artwork, and you can see the combine mode on the side of the box. And then the back of the box focuses on like the armor change gimmick. And then you can see it's like a vehicle that combines with the base figure to become like armor for it. And then Kagayaki is probably my favorite out of the set. I just really love drill tanks, and he just really pulls it off. And Komachi. Who I think is the worst out of the set. So here's the instructions they come with. It's just newsprint, and then you have a set of stickers, which is pretty standard for this line. So I haven't applied them. I probably should have, because I intend to keep this set. And here's how they scale with the Shinkalion Z and Transformers. So you can see they are kind of Voyager size. They're a little bit bigger. They're probably what you'd consider leader class size these days. And then you can see the Shinkalion Z figures are significantly bigger. All of them are bulkier and larger. Let's start with our main character, Hayabusa. So it is impressive how they can just keep redesigning this figure, and he just looks so cool in every single form. I think they always do a great job with this guy. And you can see the 360 look. He just looks very impressive. His proportions are great. They're just completely on point. And then you can see there is some hollowness in the back of his arms. So overall, I'd say his quality is probably something like an 8. It does feel like the manufacturing is taking a little bit of a hit. And if we get a close-up look of his head sculpt, you can see they kind of went back to basics on his design, and I think it paid off. His helmet, I think, is an improvement from Shinkalion Z, which I think was starting to become, which was at that point definitely over-designed. There was too much going on. It started to look very alien and less robotic. They just started adding too many details. And I think in this way he's a little more simple and clean and has less color separation. So I think the head sculpt is actually an improvement. They were just starting to go in a weird direction. And then when we compare these two guys, you can see that the Shinkalion Z is bigger, but that makes sense because this guy is actually made of 2 trains. Whereas this guy is only made of 1 train and then his partner vehicle. So this guy is actually going to be substantially smaller. So let me just go over his accessories, and then we'll just strip him down to his base mode. But yeah, his partner machine adds some really great accessories for him. His sword is very cool. He's got these 2 wings or like cape pieces that make it look like he could just really blast off. So it looks like he'd have a booster. So this guy's pretty fun. He comes with, of course, all the orange bits are the added armor from his partner machine, including in the shoulders. So he does get a shoulder extension as well. It would have been nice if they added something for his forearm, like this arm specifically. This one gets covered by a shield, so it's not so bad. But it would be nice if he had something to give him some orange here, just because his upper body is still very green and turquoise. But yeah, I think he looks very impressive. This was a major selling point of this line, I think. He just came off really good. And they've already combined trains with other trains. You have to kind of go in another direction at this point. But yeah, here's his sword. It is just like a little dagger that he doesn't even come with, and it is rubber, unfortunately, for probably safety issues. But yeah, you're not going to be stabbing anything with this. And it is hard to get into the hand because the post is also rubber. So not great. These ones are not made of rubber. These are more plastic. And these can, of course, since they just peg onto the back, they can articulate up and down. It's very simple, but it's still very pleasing. And I think he's got a lot of Gundam crossover happening at this point. He just looks very similar to a Gundam, especially when he's in his base mode. And you can take off the blast effects. And he can just look a little bit more simple. But yeah, I think a good callback to the original figure. And just a very worthy figure for like 50 or 60 bucks. Definitely worth it. He's just pretty great. So anyway, we can start peeling off all these armor bits. So the fun thing about this guy is he actually uses all his original limbs, and you just add the armor to him, which is very cool. And he's also got these thigh armors to make his thighs a little bit thicker. The only exception is really these shoulder armors. You do have to take off the shoulder armor to put the orange bits on, but overall it's very cool that this figure you can just armor him up without really having to do any parts forming, so that's very nice, except for this little shoulder bit. So yeah, here's the base figure, and he does come with this shield, which is more for the combined mode than anything. It's kind of an extra bit, but I think his base mode is actually pretty pleasing to look at. He still gives me very heavy Gundam, Astray vibes, like a Stray green frame or something. It would be nice if some of his train colors showed up on his legs, because it's all up here on his chest and his head, and then you don't really get any of this cool metallic green except for down here on the back of his legs, because you have all these robot bits. And this, I think this actually looks very ugly. The color of plastic, the contrast to the white, does a very good job of making it look less ugly. But overall, I think this is a huge downgrade from what he normally looks like. And then his feet are very tiny. And then his arms are also like a point of contention. Like I said, it's got this hollow bit. They look very cheap. They don't have wrist articulation. The bicep, look at how ugly this bicep is. It looks very cheap. But there's a reason for that. So for his articulation, this is the same for everybody, of course. He has a great ball joint neck, which is very rare for this line. Usually they cannot look around at all. So finally they fix the necks without me having to customize it. He does have, like, his shoulder armor will move. He does have 360 in the shoulder here. It does go all the way around on a friction peg. And then he does have full outward motion. He does have bicep swivel. These are all basically on mushroom pegs. You can see very much Transformers-like. And then you do have more than 90 degrees on the elbow here with a nice pin. And then he does have a, I would call this maybe a chest swivel, because it actually happens up here. So he does have 360 on that as well. So full articulation there. He does have full outward kick, full forward kick, full backward kick. And these hips are very small, so there's not much space for them to put a ratchet. And I think that's why the hips end up feeling a little wonky. They're not the best joint, but for a figure this size, it's totally fine. And then you have a thigh swivel on friction peg. And then you have a clicking ratchet knee, which is very nice. And then you do have ball joint ankles, but you're only going to get this much pivot. So you're not going to get, it's not going to be useful for very extreme A stances. But overall, great articulation. He's got no problems doing any pose you need him to do. He's totally fine with the posing. Okay, I'm not going to do this with every figure, but here's a comparison of Hayabusa with his Shinkalion Z, just the base forms. And you can see the Shinkalion Z just has more color separation. They use that dark gray a lot more, just to give him like an additional accent color, which I think helps. And then you have a lot more of the metallic turquoise showing up, which I think just really makes this guy pop. He just looks incredible. Again, I think the head on the new one is actually much better, because this head just is too dark and too busy. And then another issue with these old figures is that this head is actually not attached. It's above the ball joint, because if it is attached, his head is sunk in right into his chest, and then you can't even get any articulation out of it. So I do have to modify that at some point. But overall, I would say his old form does look better. It's lankier. I think the proportions on this guy are actually better, though. He looks tougher. His head's a little bit big, but there is a combined mode, so they have to balance that. And I think the lanky proportions on this guy kind of work, though I can see that he might be a little bit too skinny in places. So I do actually appreciate the new redesign. But overall, it's very interesting because this guy's made out of one train, this guy's made out of two, so that's why he's so much bigger and bulkier. So I'm going to go over while we're on that note, I'll go over the transformation. So he's got a lot of parts forming happening. So you're just basically going to take off everything you can take off. And then you're just going to separate his arms. You're going to rip off his torso. You don't need to tear off his pelvis, but I think you do have to remove his legs. So you've got all these bits happening, and these basically, of course, are going to sandwich together. I've only actually transformed these guys into train mode once, so I might get confused. But yeah, you have a lot of pieces, probably the most amount of pieces for a Shinkalion figure yet, just for a base figure. So that is disappointing, but they do so much, you can kind of maybe give them a pass for that. So of course you're going to get the legs, and that's ready for that sequence, and then this is going to peg back into here. Would have been nice if they could have at least made this part one piece, because these don't really need to separate, but that's fine. And then the arms you're just going to fold up into the forearm gap. And there's a correct way and there's an incorrect way, so you just have to make sure it fits correctly. And then you just sandwich those together, just like if you're doing his combine mode. And then you take these bits and they're going to peg together. And then you take the hood, I guess, I don't know what you call that. You fold down his fin, you fold his head, you rotate his head backwards so it'll fit in the front of his train mode. And then you're just going to accordion all that into place, and it tabs in very nicely. And then you can see his head's down there. And then you start assembling. So this will connect to this. This will slide down into this section, and that will cover up all this ugliness here. Let's see. Okay, I did that wrong. You have to peg these into this block first. Then you can slide it down into this, and it looks like, oh yeah, and actually it looks like I didn't have to detach the pelvis. That could have actually stayed connected. So let's go another step back. Okay, so the pelvises don't have to be detached. I was wrong about that. And then you're going to sandwich these to cover up these gaps. And then finally you can see this huge gap down here where the legs are. You're going to just peg this arm block into here. And there you have a single train. It's got a lot of breakage to it, but it doesn't look too bad. And then we have to talk about another unfortunate bit of parts forming. So here's the whole wheel and bottom section of the train. That's going to obviously peg in underneath here like that, right? The Shinkalion Z, I think, handled it more nicely by giving just these little wheel sections that would just peg into the bottom in two places, and you didn't have so much kibble. But these sections, the offset of the pegs don't fit with this guy, so you can't even use these anymore. You have to use the new wheels, which is very unfortunate, because it's just an extra bit of plastic that does nothing in every single other mode. It's just a piece of plastic that you pick up and put away. It's very useless. And then they still do have the hitch. It is still plow rail size, so it's the same size as every other train that's in the line. And then you have all the combiner bits. So you have the fist and the foot or hip section, and that's just going to slot into this. And then you have the shield, which is going to slot into this. So this is all your ugly combiner pieces that just don't fit in the train at all. And then it's got like this little hole right here that fits into this impression right there, or to this square peg, which is now the combiner pegs. And that's what your train looks like. At least it stores in the train mode, so it's not the worst thing ever, but it does make the train look very ugly and unwieldy. So now we get back to the partner vehicle. So this is like a I don't know what you call this, like a train carrier or something, but you're going to get the shin sections, you're going to get the cab section. You're going to take the feet, and those are going to peg in on the underside here. And then you can peg in the front of the cab. So you have a vehicle that's kind of taking shape. And then you're going to take the wings and peg them in under the shield section. And then that's going to slot into the back of this cab section to make something that looks like rails. And then you're going to take the thigh armors and you're just going to peg those into the shins here. And then you're going to take this pelvis piece and that's just going to hide underneath this shield. Okay, so I actually don't mind parts forming in this guy so much because he's just a partner vehicle. And then basically, I think you have to remove this. The train fits on top of this some kind of way, maybe like this. So this could just basically transports the train. It's cool that it fits the theme. So at least it does something with the trains, which is a problem that I have with the other two vehicles, is that they're not related at all. And then you can also get the dagger that can peg back here onto the shield section. So that's actually cool. I didn't even realize he had storage on the shield when he's in his robot mode. And then you can take all the effect parts and those peg into the sword. There's these little notches here where those peg together, and that's going to peg into this slot right here, or this tab. And there you go, the whole vehicle tabbed together. It's not bad. It's not great. It's just there to become armor. So at least it does something other than just become armor. Next we have Kagayaki and the drill machine, and I think he might be my favorite actually. I really love drill tanks. So the way he combines just looks really great. He does do a little bit cheating with his arms. As you can see, you do have to parts form his arms to get the drill arms, but I think the overall look is just well worth it. He just looks so good to me, and I really love the color of the drill tank. And I do want to take a minute and just do a shameless self-promotion of, this is my Buffa Gator Tiger combination from Earth Granner. I still love this figure. I love all the drill bits. It's a custom, but yeah, I just love drill tanks. I think they go together really well. And then for the head sculpt, it is very simple. Again, this looks like a very much a return to the original head designs, which I think is a good thing. I never actually bought this figure for Shinkalion Z, so I only have this guy to show off, but he's got the accessory parts, the chainsaws, which I hope they give these guys a chainsaw partner machine because it looks so cool. And you can see he's actually almost as big as the Shinkalion Z figures, which is pretty good. And I think his proportions just turn out a lot better. He's so bulky looking. This guy just looks, even with his beefy chainsaw arms, he just looks a little bit anemic compared to what the figure should look like. He should just look like a bruiser, like this guy. So he really pulls off that look really well. So this would have like a headlight sticker. I haven't applied the stickers yet. He's got decent articulation in his drill arms. It's not quite 90 degrees at the elbow, but you do get bicep swivel. It is on mushroom pegs, and I have had the mushroom pegs slide out. Another issue I have with the quality is that these slots don't slot into the feet super stably, so they tend to fall off. And then same thing with these armor pads. They're just on these little tabs right here, just tab into this hole, and it just doesn't work very well. It's very prone to just fall off. This one's already falling off for no reason. It just doesn't stick very well, so those tabs are very poor and could probably use like a little tiniest dot of super glue to keep them with enough friction. But overall, I think his looks speak for itself. This is another reason I bought this set. And then a thing they really wasted was they could have easily made this screw allow this to articulate so these could point forward, but it is just pegged in place. I'll probably end up shaving this plastic so that the drills can actually hinge forward. I don't know why they did that. That's kind of a waste because It doesn't, his drill knees are very useless when they're just pointing up all the time. I guess if he's going to do like a knee attack, you'd have to bend his knee and that would look okay. So yeah, same articulation as the other guy. I'm not going to go over that. But to get him ready for his base mode, you're just going to drop off his feet, take his pelvis out, take out these knee shin armors, rip his arms off, take his actual arms from the underside of the drill machine, get his shoulder pads, and then reattach his arms and shoulder pads, and then this extra bit just tabs into these two kind of holes right there. And then we have his base form. He just looks very basic, very boring. Yeah, there's just nothing that really sets him apart. His shoulder pads are slightly different than the other two. His chest is different because it's a different kind of train. But overall, just he's probably the worst looking in his core mode. Okay, there he is in train mode. Nothing much to say about this guy. I guess he's an older version of the Shinkansen, but I guess he's just like a traditional version because I think this is the same guy from Rail Racer. And you can see he's like an off-white. So the other ones just look better because they're more modern. Okay, in the drill tank, we're going to just line up the treads. And you can see this wheel is upside down. It would be nice if they had a rotating joint because this arm does not have any fists anyway. But you actually have to unpeg this just so you can put it on the other side. It's kind of dumb actually. It should just rotate. This it's kind of pointless, but I guess you need it to detach for if you want the combined 3 robot combiner to have drill fists, then you need this piece to come off. So I guess I can understand why they did that. And then you're going to sandwich this together and you've already got most of the drill tank. And then you're going to take the knee pads and those are just going to peg into these square slots, the combiner slots. So they use these kinds of connection points, which are not bad. They're doing the job, so I can't complain with those either. And then you're going to take the feet section. I don't think it really matters. Well, actually, no, it definitely does matter. You have to have the pegs in the middle between both of them. And you're just going to peg on this headlight section, and then that's going to peg into this slot right here, theoretically. And then finally, you take the pelvis piece, and that's just going to hide back here. And there you have the drill tank, which I think it's very cool. It's very flat to the ground, which I like. I don't like it when drill tanks have like a bunch of extra space on top. So this drill tank looks like it could actually dig through the earth without getting stuck too much. So I do appreciate that. It does look very cool. It would be, again, nice if these drills could articulate at least. These ones do rotate, but they're on a hard friction joint, which was a weird choice. They should just spin very freely. I don't know why they did that. So they're no fun to spin. But yeah, pretty good looking drill tank. And then this is how he is compared to his train. They don't interact in any way, obviously. And then finally we have the Komachi combination. So the armor change, which I think is the worst of the set, easily. The legs look very cool, I'll give you that. But then this whole backpack section is very poor. It just kind of doesn't do anything. The color separation looks pretty good. I think he looks good with the yellow. And if we look at the head sculpt, this one looks a little bit fat to me. Like he looks a little bit too bulky. But again, it's like a return to the original head designs, which I think looks better overall. And then if we compare him to his ultimate or his perfect Shinkalion Z form, I think we can all agree that the Shinkalion Z form wins. Just the missile pods is very amazing. His twin sniper rifles. He also comes with a minigun that I gave to Dreadwind, or no, Skyquake, I mean. And this form just looks so much cooler, and I really like that the sniper rifles you could even store like on his legs, so they kind of look like they're holstered. This guy is just far superior. He's just loaded to the gills with weapons. This guy's got a couple of missile pods here, which looks cool, but this one just wins. He's so much better. The head sculpt, though, I would not say is better. It's got that Same issue I had with Hayabusa. It's just too much going on, whereas the new head is just nice and clean, and you can tell what's going on. This one just looks kind of like Monster Hunter-esque. But yeah, I think the old Shinkalion Z form just wins. Compared to this, I don't know what happened. It just didn't work out. He does have these two rifles, which are cool, but they are hollow, unfortunately, which is very ugly. And they do a cool trick where you can combine them, and then you can stick his base gun in there, and now he's got like a giant shotgun. So that's cool. I do like that. He can't really hold it across his chest. That's not going to happen. But basically, he's supposed to have this gun stays in this hand, and this one's just supposed to peg up here uselessly. And that would be okay if this would articulate, but it doesn't. It can only rotate. So this gun is just always pointing at the sky, and you have to like point him forward and have him look up. And that's how he uses it, I guess. I don't know. They just really missed the boat with this guy. He just doesn't work. The thing I do appreciate is he's got these wheel feet, which is very cool. So you can get the idea that he's zooming around very quickly, shooting things. But yeah, he just doesn't really work. And then you have to parts form him. These are not armor pieces. These are just leg replacements. His actual legs are back here, and I guess these are supposed to become like boosters or something. But it just doesn't really sell it. It needed to have like thrusters that peg onto these to make this look better, to make it work. But it just, I don't know, that maybe I'm just being too harsh with this guy, but I think he's definitely the weakest of the set. So if you're only going to get two, get the other two, of course. But anyway, so to transform him, we're just going to, of course, just grab all of his pieces, take everything off. Just yank everything off. And even this piece, this giant shield-looking piece, just doesn't become a shield. All it needed was a mushroom peg, or a peg, so that it could peg onto a forearm, and that would really help this guy. Or the combine mode, like the three-piece combiner, at least then the shield could kind of do something, but it's just this huge piece of plastic that does nothing. And then his pelvis, you just take everything off, rip off his legs, and that will get us into his base mode. And he's Gundam Astray red frame, so I think that actually looks very good. So the red actually works pretty well for this guy. But yeah, let's go ahead and get him off to the side and look at his partner vehicle. So we take all these little bits, and he does a couple interesting things, but again, even the vehicle mode kind of fails. So you're going to take this, and this is going to peg here like this, and this is going to become the forklift. And then you're going to just take the legs. You do this very pleasant thing of rotating the wheels up, which feels very good. I do enjoy that. And then you're going to rotate the toes around. And then you're just going to, of course, sandwich his legs together to make a vehicle. And then you're going to slide the forklift into the front here. Maybe that's upside down, I can't tell. Maybe it looks more like a forklift with the hollow bits up, I don't know. And then you take his pelvis, that's just going to clip onto his knee armor here. And then you're going to take the missile pods, and those just peg on, hiding in the back. And then you take his rifle, and that, I actually don't know if this thing fits in somewhere. Oh, it looks like it fits down here. You slot this down here. Oh, upside down. So you slot this down here. I didn't even know that connected. And there you go. There's his little weapon partner. Looks okay. They missed a real good trick here where this should have been able to slide up and down. They should have made these pegs a separate piece. So you could at least slide this thing up and down and make it look less worthless. And there you go. Here's the forklift and the train. You can see the forklift is comically out of scale. I don't know how these two things relate. He can definitely not lift this up without falling over. I don't know. I guess it looks pretty cool. I think it looks cooler without even having the forklift sections. But he does his job. He becomes an armor pack. He becomes a weapon pack for the train. So what are you going to do? All right, and here's a group shot of everybody. And do I recommend these sets? Yeah, the quality is very good. It's an 8 all across the board. They feel pretty solid in hand. If you're going to make the 3-part combiner, definitely you have to get all of them. It's just mandatory. If you just want 1 or 2 of them, definitely Hayabusa and Kagayaki are definitely the best 2 in my opinion. And then Komachi is just an easy miss. So yeah, I'd highly recommend these. These are about $50 to $60 on Amazon Japan. Well worth it. I think there's a lot of play value to be had here. And I've got a set that I'll be selling on eBay. And that's it. I'll see you in the next one.